Welcome to our workshop today, guys, on tech essentials. What we want to do is just share a little bit of information with you to sort of lay some foundational details for you to frame up your thinking around what your technology stack might look like in your nonprofit. This information is certainly not exhaustive. It's not the be all and end all. It's just meant to give you a frame of reference. And as we go through this information, you may find that maybe you have questions or you want to tease out more information. We certainly will provide an opportunity for questions today. And then we also will have plenty of opportunities after the fact if we're not able to delve down more deeply, should you have questions that you'd like to explore further. So we'll have plenty of opportunities to do that even beyond today. You may have seen this particular slide before, and if you have, bear with me for a moment. And if you haven't, then this gives you sort of a high-level view of Aparo and our business offerings. Our mission in life is to bring technology enablement to other nonprofits that we serve. And we do that through three primary buckets, if you will, of service: expert advice, tailored solutions, and empowering education. Expert advice really refers to our tech therapy program. Similar in nature to what we're doing today, right? Where we share information with you, offer details that might guide your decision-making, and so on. So when I had everybody raise their hands when we first got underway, Jerry, Todd, Jennifer, Stephanie, we're the tech therapy team. And we're the ones who sort of guide that expert advice bucket of service. Then we have empowering education. Again, today's session is very similar to that, whereby we offer educational sessions around technology topics of interest. And generally that happens in the form of webinars, such as what we're in today. But we also offer tailored training events to specific nonprofits to address their specific needs. So as you go down the line through this program, or perhaps after you've left it, if your organization determines you have a need on some specific training, Yin-Ting would be your point of contact, and she would work with you to tailor something specific to your nonprofit's needs. And then tailored solutions, that's what we refer to our community impact projects. This is a little bit deeper engagement. Those engagements generally run between 12 and 16 weeks. And it's where we really dive deeply into a technology issue that you need some assistance with. We bring a skilled volunteer to the team. Generally, our most popular CIPs generally are around technology, plans, business process analysis, and application selection. So if any of these areas are of interest to you, Yin-Ting or anybody else on the team will be happy to delve more deeply into the descriptions and how you might have access to some of those services. Excuse me. So pardon me, had a little frog there. So for today's focus, again, we just want to lay some foundational information for you around technology things to think about. When we talk about technology tools, so there's clearly the obvious: your computers, your printers, your internet, and so on. But really, there are some perhaps less obvious components around technology, and this is something that Aparo really specializes in to help you wrap your mind around these things. It has to do like with technology support and planning, keeping your eye on security to keep your data and your information secure. Also policies and procedures, just having even baseline frameworks that guide your use of technology. Maybe it's remote work, or maybe it's, do you allow staff to bring their own devices, and those kinds of things. So we'll speak to a little more detail a little bit later down the line today about these things. And then lastly, the last bullet item here is backups. It's really important to back up your data. And we mean beyond just the thumb drive that you might slip into your laptop to back up your files. Like that's not the most highly recommended method to run backups. So that's a big deal to make sure your data is protected. So that's just kind of an overview of what we mean when we start talking about technology tools. Now let's go in a little bit more to what infrastructure might look like, and I'll turn it over to Stephanie here.
Thanks, Jennifer. Hey, everyone, I'm Stephanie McKee. I want to kick things off talking about infrastructure around cloud versus what we used to call in the traditional days of infrastructure on-premise, which means you're using a laptop to store your data, or you have a file server that you're sharing with your organization to share files. A lot of nonprofits definitely, I've been with Aparo going on 10 years. The past probably 5 or 6 years, a lot of nonprofits are moving to a cloud infrastructure because it's easier to manage. You don't have to worry about replacing file servers. You don't have to have someone there to do all the maintenance and the security on them. So, and cloud is very affordable, especially for nonprofits. And we'll talk about that a little later, like what options are there to get you business email and cloud storage for low cost or free. Jennifer, thank you. So trying to decide, if you're going to do cloud versus on-prem, as I mentioned earlier, cloud's very affordable, especially for nonprofits. The offerings are free. You have the cloud providers will do the maintenance for you. They take care of security for you. But putting a plan together, deciding what direction you're going to do is the number one thing, and looking at your budget as well. And also looking at what kind of tech support do you need, and some training. Like if you go with a cloud product like Google Workspace or Microsoft 365, there's some administrative things that you need to know, how to set up email addresses, how to support, how to change passwords, and like that. So these are all different things to think about when you're trying to decide between the two. And good thing with cloud providers, sorry, Jennifer, is they take care of doing all the updates for you as well. That's another thing that's taken away from that on-premise, is you don't have to worry about that. It's kind of a peace of mind as well. Okay, Jennifer. So let's talk about a couple of offerings that are free to nonprofits. The first one is Microsoft 365. They offer their business premium license, which gives you advanced threat protection. You get 10 licenses for free. Anything above that is discounted. I think it's $5.50 per user per month, but the first 10 are free, which also includes Microsoft Office, the latest version of Office that you can download to your computer or your laptop. It includes business email, security, Microsoft Teams, OneDrive, which is, we call it a personal drive, where you can store things that you really don't need to share, that it's your items that you're working on. And then there's SharePoint, which is a collaborative file sharing space that you can set up file shares that you can share and collaborate with your teammates. And Microsoft does a really great job with, they've got a whole learning center that's included. It's free. There's lots of videos, lots of training on how do you administrate 365. So just wonderful. They've done a really great job. And they also have 24/7 support. So you can, if you have questions about anything Microsoft 365 related, you can submit a call. You can also talk to them on the phone, and it's all free. And then Google Workspace is another popular platform for nonprofits. It's also free. That gives you business email as well. Google Meet is like their Zoom or Teams. You have a chat. You also have a shared space, Google Drive. It also comes with built-in, I call it like an Office suite. So Google Docs, Sheets, and Forms. I know Forms is very popular in the education space for nonprofits. They're easy to use. Microsoft also has a Forms tool now that's easy to use as well. So both of these are great collaborative spaces that really lift a nonprofit up to be their enterprise grade platforms. I'll just kind of leave it at that.
So really quickly, I want to chime in there. We will be having a workshop specifically around Google Workspace and comparing it to Microsoft 365 to talk more about what are some things you'll need to consider when making that decision. And then we'll also be talking about, if you are in that space of considering migrating from one to the other, what that might look like and what are some things you might want to consider. So that'll be the last workshop of this 8 weeks.
So let's do a quick poll with everyone just to get a sense of whether or not you've had an opportunity yet to consider and draft a technology plan. Whoops, sorry about that. This just kind of gives us a sense of where everyone is and whether or not, as I said, you've had an opportunity to think about it. So looks like the vast majority of the group does not have a technology plan in place. And let me just say, guys, that's not unusual for us to hear or to see. Sometimes when people think about a technology plan, it can be intimidating because, there might be this thought like, oh, it's got to be this, big fancy document. And it really doesn't. It's really more about just getting a framework of thought around your tech and what you, how you prioritize what your tech needs are and how you try to address them. So at the foundation of a technology plan, whoops, sorry about that. I'm getting all click happy here. Let me try that again. Here's what I want you to see. So, at the foundation of a technology plan is really just to take an assessment of your current state, right? And in our business, in Aparo, we call that a technology maturity model assessment. And what we do, and we're going to do this today, incidentally, we'll run you through a series of questions that you answer. And depending on how you respond, it builds a house that looks just like this. You'll actually have the opportunity today, once you answer the questions, it will generate a report for you that looks very similar to this. This is just a sample. I don't know where the colors will land on your report, but generally speaking, this is just a quick visual to give you an immediate snapshot to know what your current state of tech is in the overall area of these 13 spaces that we ask. So there's no right or wrong answer. It's about understanding where you stand right now. And then from this, you can build out a plan or a plan of action, next steps, and we can certainly assist with that, which is one of the reasons we want to walk you through that maturity model assessment today. It'll, as I say, give us a current state, and it helps inform where to go from here and for you to prioritize, because frankly, none of us can address everything all at one time. We got to figure out what can we do and in what order. You'll notice that that house had color codes, and this is the legend that helps inform what those different color codes mean. And again, this will be included in your report once you finish today answering all those questions. But these bullet points under each level just help you understand sort of the criteria that the assessment looks at to help generate a quote unquote score. And again, you know, it's not like the idea is not, oh, everybody's at 100%. No, it helps us understand where you are right now today and how to prioritize. And incidentally, these things can change and fluctuate over time. You know, today something might come out as stable, and, you know, next year you might take the assessment again and realize, oh, things have changed. Maybe now we're in a reactive state. So again, I just want to reiterate, there's no right or wrong. It's just to help understand where you are at the moment in time that you take it, and to inform what next steps might be taken to put you in as strong a position as possible around your technology. So, you know, again, when we talk about technology planning, these are the three key areas. What are we looking at? You know, we're looking at your hardware, your software. Do you have policies in place? Do you have adequate tech support to help mitigate any issues that you may run into using your technology? And where does this plan impact you? Well, if you have an office space, then maybe it's only within the office space. If you're fully remote, well, then it would relate to your remote work environment. Or in the case like with Aparo, we're hybrid. So we have both, right? We have remote work policies and office policies because of our hybrid working model. And of course, you know, why do you want to do this? Because it helps you maintain a handle on your operational costs, helps you work as efficiently as possible. And again, as I mentioned earlier, keeping your data secure. And you will probably hear security several times throughout your work time with us, because it's a big deal. Many times a nonprofit might come to us and say, oh gosh, I don't have to worry about security. You know, we just don't have that kind of important data. And of course, one of our first questions is, oh, do you have donors and do you have their credit cards? Because that is an issue that needs to be attended to protect you and of course your donors' personal data. So let me switch it back over and have Stephanie tell us a little bit more about tech support.
Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, as Jennifer was saying earlier, it's good to have a technical expert that you can reach out to when things go awry, or if you have hardware problems with your computer, your laptop, just to be there as support. And there's different technical support models. There's what's called managed service providers, which usually charge a monthly fee, but they're there for you to call. They do a lot of remote support. And there's also individuals that do IT support that do more of a time and material type model. And if you're looking for a technical support person or company, Aparo's here to help. We have so many trusted vendors, partners that we refer to nonprofits that give nonprofits discounts as well. And it's really just having that peace of mind if something does happen, that you have someone there that you can reach out to help provide support. And just a little more detail on technology policies and the importance of these to, you know, share with your staff. especially around acceptable use of your devices, because you're running a business and you want to make sure that your data is safe, that your staff is safe, email, and that you've got security in place, as well as password management is a big part of this. Another one that's kind of popular with nonprofits is BYOD, which is if you allow your staff to bring their own devices, there needs to be some policies around that. Like what antivirus is the computer running, password policies. So these are all things that a part can help you with as well. We have quite a few. Most of these are templates that we're happy to share, and you would just fit them to fit your needs of your organization.
Which means, going back to what I was saying, like about the technology plan, these don't have to be, 50-page, in-depth, complex documents. Some of our templates are 1 or 2 pages, right? It's just to put a framework and intentional thought around these things. So if any of these bullet items sound, like, oh, they're going to be so technical and high tech, no, they're not. No. And that's what we help you with. We help you interpret that information and put something that fits you into place.
Oh, it looks like Yancy, those are already in the box folder. Awesome. You're awesome. And I was going to mention too, with part of like our APARA's onboarding process is to share the acceptable use policy and a remote work policy with new staff and have them sign it there and just kind of go over it with them. So that's kind of just a good process that you may want to think about putting into place. There's also what we call a disaster recovery plan, which is, if something happens, someone gets malware or ransomware on their laptop or gets a hold of your data, or even a power outage, or, an ice storm comes through and everybody's power's out, what do you do? So there's plans that you can put together that can be simple. And we also have templates for these and can help you guide you through kind of filling them out and what's important. Like, who do you need to call if there's a situation? The same with an incident response plan. That's a great plan to have around your security incidents, where how to respond and how to recover, who to contact. Like if you have a security breach and there's a virus on the computer and it gets hold of, say, a donor spreadsheet data. Would you need to contact all of your donors and let them know? Do you need to contact your board, the CEO? So it's just a pretty simple plan of who to call when something happens and how to react.
Because Stephanie, doesn't it help us when something like this unexpected happens and we get stressed out and worried and we're trying to figure out, oh no, what do we do? It's like a pilot checklist, right? You just check the boxes and go through the steps to keep yourself as safe as possible. And so that's what that's all about. Poll. This is very similar to what we were asking about the technology plan. We just want to get a feel for whether or not you've had an opportunity to give any thought to a plan around securing your data. Can you see the results, Stephanie? I'm not sure if you can see them too. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, I can see them.
Okay, cool. So I'll let you take it. Oops. Oh, there I go, getting click happy again.
Oh, sorry. I still had I still had the poll up on my screen and I thought you had to click close. So my bad.
No worries. I know, right? I closed it on my side, but it didn't close anywhere else. Anyhow, here we go. Okay, so that was at 90% said.
Yeah, 90%. Well, hopefully this information that we're getting ready to provide you will kind of get you started on thinking about a security plan. These are just some best practices that we have found are helpful, and they're either free or low cost to you and your organization. So multi-factor authentication, I'm sure most of you have heard of this and may have it implemented. That is where if you're logging in to say your Microsoft 365, you're prompted to text a code to your phone or to another email address, and you have to authenticate twice. So we highly recommend that you implement this for all of your cloud applications. Most of them have it: Google Workspace, Microsoft. You know, if you use a CRM like Salesforce or data management, most all of them have the multi-factor authentication. And it's really usually just a checkbox that you have to turn on, and that will require staff and anyone who's logging in to do that. It's also called two-factor authentication as well. When you're using email or when you're, you know, on the web, internet browsing, always think before you click on something. There's a lot of what we call phishing emails that come through with links that look real, and I'm going to show you some examples here in a minute. If you don't know someone that's emailing you, just be aware and be cautious and just think before you click on links that are in emails especially. Also think about creating strong passwords that include upper, lowercase, numbers, characters, even phrases with spaces are great to have. Password manager tools have become very popular. And there's quite a few that are very low cost. There's some out there that are actually free. There's 1Password, LastPass. Aparo is getting ready to implement one called Keeper. So there's nonprofit discounts as well. And just to throw this out there, the tech therapy team, if you do have a question about a tool like this, reach out to Yunteen or Jennifer, Jerry, Todd, and we can tell you whether it's free, low cost, does it have a good reputation, and things like that. That's what we're here to help you guys with. We've already talked about policy, so that's another security best practice. You also want your staff to be aware of threats that are coming in. So providing security awareness to your staff is a really important piece. So it's at top of mind for them. Wiser Training, they offer free security training for nonprofits. And I think it's quarterly that they offer. Isn't that right, Jennifer? And then like a quarterly sessions that they send out to the staff, and they just go through a little training, and there's like a little test at the end, and they get a certificate. So it helps to keep, you know, top of mind again when using email and the internet. Another great resource is National Cybersecurity Alliance. There's a lot of free resources and information out there on cybersecurity. As Jennifer mentioned earlier, data backups, how important those are. If you were to get infected with a virus or malware, or ransomware, you want to be able to go to your backup and restore it. So there's lots of cloud backup products out there. And we're happy to provide some examples of those. Another important piece is using an antivirus on your laptop or computer. There's free ones out there. There's low cost ones. And I'll talk about TechSoup as another resource. There's a lot of low cost software that's donated for that nonprofits can get access to. And they have antivirus and data backup there for you as well. And I think, Yantine, you were is the technology checklist on the box site?
Yes.
Okay, cool. It's a great little checklist just to go through, kind of reviews your Wi-Fi and things to do, best practices, talks about firewalls and things like that.
You know, I just wanted to add one other thing to what you said about data backups, Stephanie. You know, if you guys have, so machines are so reliable, generally speaking, and you might have a newer computer, laptop, desktop, whatever, but I would urge you not to rely on that, because it's not a question of if, it's a question of when it comes to man-made devices. The machine might just go kaflooey all on its own, or to Stephanie's point, you might get a breach or something like that. So really think about backing up your data. Don't rely on a newish machine, you know, to be the sole source of your truth. Keep a backup. I say this from experience. A lot of us have been down that road where we were like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. And then we got caught.
That's a good point, Jennifer. Thanks for bringing that up. And just, you know, if your hard drive or your computer goes kapooey, if you do have a like a Microsoft 365 or a Google Workspace and you're saving your stuff in the cloud, then you're still able to access it, which is wonderful.
Yeah, it is.
So this slide just shows a couple of examples of phishing text and an email. So on the left side, you can see an example of how to spot fake text. And I'm sure this is becoming more and more common. I get them all the time, it seems like. And one of the popular ones that's coming out is asking, like it's coming from your CEO or your boss, and it's saying, I want you, I'm in a meeting, I need you to go get some gift cards. Click on this link. So that first example kind of shows you what to look for, and, you know, looking at where it's coming from as well, if you don't recognize the number or email address. And also the link down at the bottom of the slide that y'all have access to this, there's great articles on the betterbusinessbureau.org, but it kind of explains what to look for in a lot more detail. But when you get these texts from the scammers, just don't reply to them, because they'll reply back and request information, and they'll keep coming back. So just delete it. I would click on most of our phones, say block this sender. So I get quite a few of these scams that they're kind of scary at times, to be quite honest.
Because they look so real, right?
Yeah.
And also, like, look at that where it says opt out, and you think, oh, I'm going to click no and tell them to leave me alone. All you did was confirm that your number is real and active.
Yeah, I think, Jennifer, I was with you last week when we were at the conference, and I got a scammer text, and it says that it was like UPS, and said something about $400 and some has been transferred from your account. And I'm like, what?
Right?
Yeah, yeah. I was like, this can't be real. So the other example is one that an email that came to our CEO, Kim, and it looks so legit, like it's coming from Microsoft. And they wanted her to click on this keep password so they could get her information. But if you look at the from field, you'll see there that that has nothing to do with Microsoft.com. That's coming from a really wonky email address. So that's a good way to, when you do receive emails, make sure you look at that from field. Because you can usually decipher whether it is legit or not. So just use caution. Jennifer, do you
Stephanie,
have anything
you
else you
gave
want
it.
to add?
Yeah, you gave us a really good piece of it, but you've consistently given a good piece of advice. Like whenever we see, because you guys might imagine we get hit up all the time, right? So when an email comes in, if we don't know who it's from, and we can't really tell, from looking at the information in there, contact the person that it looks like it's from. Like call them or text them. Hey, did you send me an email? Or even use your real email credentials from that person, you know what I mean? And check with them to see if they actually sent you a message. And that relieved a lot of stress for me personally, because then I realized, okay, if I can't really tell by looking at this message, I'll just reach out to the person that I think it's from, particularly when it looks like it's from your CEO or something like that. And then, it gives you sort of an avenue to check things out before you actually reply or click, and essentially confirm to the bad guys that they've got a valid email address. Yeah. Ready to move on?
Let's do it. Okay, we're going to move on from security to talk about hardware recommendations. So I think a lot of us are still working remotely, and we've seen this transition, of course, before COVID, but especially during when we were going through the 2.5 years of everybody working from home. The tick in laptops, more and more people are getting a laptop versus a desktop now. So we just want to give you some recommendations on kind of the standards when you're ordering a laptop or looking at purchasing a new laptop. We recommend 8 to 16 gigabytes of RAM. 16 is becoming more popular. RAMs come down in price some, so it's a little more reasonable these days. We usually find a 256 gig hard drive. And the new technology is called solid state drives. They're better performing and more reliable than the older traditional hard drives. And a lot of times if we're using a cloud product to store our data in the cloud, you don't need that much hard drive space anymore. Most, pretty much all laptops come with built-in Wi-Fi now and a webcam, because we're all on video a lot of times during the day. And we usually recommend, if you can, to get a 3 or 4 year on-site warranty, just in case you have hardware issues. You can call up Dell or HP and they'll troubleshoot, they'll come out, send someone out to repair your computer. So it's worth a little extra money to get that peace of mind warranty for your hardware. And if you're ever looking at a laptop, whether it's a new or used, the Aparo Tech Therapy team can help you. We've got relationships with several of the vendors. We also, if any of you have heard E2D, they refurb laptops that are coming from corporations, and they sell them for, what is it, Jennifer, $150?
Right.
Yeah. And they're usually, and they test them, reformat them with Windows 10 and make sure they're in working condition. They actually give you, I think, a 90-day warranty with them. And they're usually about 3 or 4 years old. So great resource to have. So if you're looking for hardware, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Another popular thing through the remote work and hybrid is having audio video. So at Aparo, we use what's called the owl, and you can see the cute little owl there, picture, and he does hoot. We all get a kick out of that, but it's very easy to use. You just plug it into your laptop. You can project up on another display, but you're able to see everybody in the room. It's got kind of a rotating lens at the top. They do offer a nonprofit discount, and I'll put the link on the slide for you all. It's through their Owl for Good program. Logitech's another really popular audiovisual tool, video camera. There's a lot of different ones that you can find that will fit your budget. And then cloud-hosted phone systems, those have become a lot more popular, especially in the hybrid. A lot of people use what's called soft phones. A soft phone is an application you can put on your computer. It's like Microsoft Teams. If you ever use Teams, you can actually call people on Teams externally, like your traditional phone system. So these are just examples. There's like a gazillion different cloud-hosted phone systems out there. Zoom's even doing one now. And of course, Microsoft Teams. Ring Central's another popular one, and Nextiva. Anything, Jennifer, you want to add to
Nope, I think
what
we're
I've shared
good.
here?
All set.
Cool. And then here's the information about TechSoup. So being a nonprofit, if you're a 501c3, you can register for free for TechSoup. They are a global nonprofit that provides donated and discounted software, hardware, and also services like tech support and training. So it's free to sign up. And if you're looking for QuickBooks, you can get QuickBooks. I think it's like $99 versus $400 if you were to go outside of TechSoup, or if you were just to go to online or Staples to purchase it. And the same with like Adobe, if you're looking for Adobe Creative Suite for your marketing stuff, or Zoom, they give you a 50% discount, antiviruses as well. So highly recommend registering for TechSoup and utilizing all this wonderful software that they're able to provide for free or low cost.
Okay,
I'll turn it back to you, Jennifer.
thank you. So let's have an opportunity for questions or comments. Jinting, I can see, I haven't been opening chat, but I can see we've had a number of chats come in. So let's open the floor if anybody would like to ask questions, but then also Jinting has an eye on chat that we can address those comments or questions.
Yeah, so far it's mainly been comments on various topics that we've covered. So far, no questions.
I have a question.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Christy Cruz with Books with Color. So my question is, you talked about the security plan and by that, did you mean, do you have McAfee antivirus software? Or are we talking about something greater, like a backup to a cloud? Explain that, what you need to have a good security plan, what the components are of that.
You want to take that, Jennifer?
Sure. So, I mean, it can be as fundamental as, do you have security software on your laptop? And most machines come with, access to security. So at a minimum, we would, recommend that. But there's actually a series of questions that can be posed to an organization to help figure out, have you given thought to things like, is your confidential data locked down? And when I say locked down, like, does that mean that a bad guy can't break in? Well, no, there's no 100% guarantee, but the point is that you've taken actions to mitigate the risk, right? So you would want to consider things like, what kinds of confidential data do you have? Where is it stored? Is it in the cloud? Is it on a local machine? What happens if you have a data breach? What is your course of action? Who are you required to notify? Do you have insurance that helps you with those kinds of things? So it can be as comprehensive as you have the capacity to consider, but fundamentally it starts with, do you have antivirus software? Do you have a firewall? Do you have good passwords? Are you using multi-factor authentication? Like, those are just some baseline practices you want to get into place. Stephanie, what would you add to that?
Christy, the technology checklist that we mentioned a few minutes ago that's on the box site, it's got some good pointers on it to help you get started.
Yes.
That I think would be very helpful.
What is your thought on the portable hard drives, the backup hard drives, as opposed to the cloud?
The portable hard drives are great, but I have had several circumstances in the past years where if you're only using that to back up with, like, the hard drives in them can go bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're kind of, well, my data is not backed up. I do believe strongly in the cloud backup for security and, going back to peace of mind. And it's really low cost too. And you're not having to carry around a hard drive with you that you could potentially lose or, could be taken. So.
Okay. And if this sounds like a silly question, I apologize, but
No.
you're talking about confidential information and data and things that need to be very secure. But then if you're uploading them to a cloud, who's to say that the wrong eyes aren't going to see it there? And how do we protect ourselves against that?
Yeah, I guess back to making sure you've got multi-factor authentication in place and that you've trained your staff on how to use that. And the cloud providers, they are, I would say, keeping our data, like Microsoft does an amazing job with all the security they have in place. And that totally trust them. We have all of our data over there too. Google does a good job too, but just putting the parameters in place for multi-factor and other things that you can do, administer to make your cloud secure. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, to add to that, those big providers, those cloud providers, like, they have redundant systems, right? So if something happens to one server, they've got a redundant system in place to protect your information. And they have, as you might imagine, Microsoft and Google, gosh, they have the data of lots of different corporate entities. They have to have, in order to protect themselves, they have to have policies in place, right, to help protect your information. So, if you were going to use someone besides one of the two major players, you would just want to, just ask them, hey, do you have security policies in place, and what are they? And even if you don't know how to interpret them, just asking the question is a start. And if you need help with interpretation, certainly Aparo can do that. And there was one other thing I wanted to clarify, like, you know, when we talk about Microsoft and Google cloud services, that's a whole bunch of stuff. That's productivity tools, that's, you know, your email, your SharePoint and all that. And then they back all that stuff up. But you could potentially choose a cloud provider strictly for backup. Like maybe if you're not a Microsoft user, you could still choose a service that backs up all your data in the cloud. And Stephanie, I forget who some of the examples are. I don't know if you have any off the top of your head, the, you know, backup providers that would be separate and above from productivity platforms like Microsoft or Google.
Are you referring, Jennifer, to cloud backup?
Yeah, but I can't, yes, but I can't remember any of the providers. So like if I wasn't using Google or Microsoft, but I still want to back up my data to the cloud, right?
Yeah, there's like Carbonite is a popular one. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't think about that.
So one more question from me, if my dog doesn't bark, sorry. So the, you know, the phishing scams that you showed, and usually it's pretty obvious because there's misspellings and there's commas and spaces in the wrong places. But this one got me. It really did. And it was last week and I clicked it and I said, oh my God, no. It looks so real. And then I backed out of it. I deleted it, but I had already clicked it. Nothing's happened to my computer, but did it download? What should I do now? You know, because I did click on one of them.
Do you have antivirus on your computer where you can run a scan?
Mm-hmm.
You do.
So
Have
that'll
you
get
tried
it.
to do that? Yeah, I would try to do that. And depending, there's some more sophisticated, what they call EDR antiviruses out there that can detect ransomware and malware, and they go a little much more deeper than some of the other basic ones and free tools.
Mm-hmm.
And I can share some examples with you and team to put on box too of what, like CrowdStrike is one of those, or Bitdefender is, you can get that for low cost through TechSoup.
Okay.
But
thanks. I think I should, because, you know, we invested in a brand new laptop and I don't want to mess with it. And it looked like an invoice. And I thought it was a legitimate invoice, and
yeah.
it was good. It
Yeah,
really
those are really good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's some very creative ones out there that's really hard to detect.
Mm-hmm.
And usually if you hold your cursor over, like the example I showed you, the one that came to Kim, that blue box that said keep password,
Mm-hmm.
if you hold your cursor over that keep password, you can see the URL. And usually you can tell it's a phishing email because the URL has nothing to do with Microsoft or
Mm-hmm.
is pointing to somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good way to detect and make a decision not to click.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions? All right. In that case, what we'll do is, you might recall early on in the last slide deck, we were referring to what we call the maturity model, right? And this is a brief assessment, 13 questions, that just takes a look at your current state around several areas. And then at the end of it, it'll build a little house. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drop a link into chat. And this is where you guys are going to navigate. And then we're going to go through this together. So firstly, let me get in here, send this to everyone. Okay, so this takes you to the website where we have the maturity model posted. Now, kind of the first things you guys are going to have to do is set yourselves up into into this assessment process. So what I want to do is walk you through that with a few slides so that we're all on the same sheet of music, so to speak. Okay, so I'm going to, while you guys are logging in there, I'm going to pull up this deck. Okay. Yinting, are you still seeing my slides on the left? I might have to change my settings again. Okay, let me go in. All right, let me do this. Okay, now you should see slideshow mode.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so we're not going to go through the model again, but what I am going to do is just pull this slide back up that shows you the 13 areas that we look at. And there's just one question for each of these areas, and it's radio buttons. It's multiple choice. You just pick one answer from multiple options. Okay, but this is what the blank house looks like. And once you complete it, it's going to populate with color codes based on how you responded. Incidentally, you guys will get a copy of this deck so that you'll have this information for future reference. Okay, so when you log into that web address, this is the screen you should see. And what you'll want to do when you get to this screen is, unless you've already created an account, and I don't believe any of you have, if you have, you're going to use login, right? And use your login username and password. But I don't think any of you guys have done that yet. So instead, you're going to choose the register button. So speak up if you are having any trouble getting to this page. And if everybody is here and I hear no questions or no hand raises, I'll go ahead and move on to the next page here. Everybody with us? Perfect. Okay. So when you register, this is the screen you're going to encounter. You don't see all of this detail necessarily, but these are the requirements, the criteria for your password, right? It's got to have at least the characters, a numeral, a special character, and a capital letter. So I'll go silent for a moment. Incidentally, I would recommend you use your organizational email address. You don't have to, but that's something to consider. Make a notation of your password somewhere so that you will remember what it is after the fact. If your password does not contain these criteria and you click register, it will let you know and ask you to reconsider. Let us know if you have any questions on this screen. Okay, I'm going to shift to the next one. Once you register, the system will ask for your user profile. The stars are beside fields that are required. It will not let you save and register unless the required fields are completed. And we'll sit here quietly to give you a moment. Please be sure and let us know if you have questions as you're completing this screen.
What is 501c3?
Yeah, yes, that means, have you already received your 501c3 as a nonprofit organization? Is that what you were asking?
Yes, I didn't receive anything.
So you haven't, okay. So out of the way. If you don't have it, if you do not have that yet, you don't check it. But if you have received it, check it.
So just as a reminder, this is really meant for the nonprofits to complete. So if you are a volunteer, you can sit back and watch.
Great, that's a great point. Thank you for making that point, Yenting. I did not, I had neglected to say that. Right. This is the tool we have in place for nonprofits to use as opposed to volunteers.
Oh, yeah, I'm a volunteer, so I don't have to register then.
Correct. And what we'll do is we'll ask the nonprofits, once they complete it, we're going to recommend that they share the completed maturity model with their volunteers so that volunteers have access and copy of the same thing. And it'll simply be an email. So everyone will see at the end.
Oh, okay, that's clear now. Thank you.
Of course. Apologies for not making that clear to begin with. Thank you for making that point, Yenting. Any other questions about the user profile page? All right, once you complete those fields and save, you should be on the home page that looks like this. Now, it might look slightly different than mine, but probably you see exactly the same thing. Once you're on this page, if you look in the upper right-hand corner where my cursor's pointing and it says log off, that's kind of your visual cue that you're active in the system. And you see this take assessment button, saved assessments, completed assessments. And we'll talk more about that in just a moment. If anybody has not made it to this page yet, please let us know so that we can give you some assistance. Oops, sorry about that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing this particular page, and then I'm going to share something different. Okay, I'm going to go to the live site now and share that. And that's where I want to describe for you what will look different after you've taken this assessment more than once. So right here on this screen that we're showing, I'm live on the site. You won't see saved assessments or completed assessments. I'm pointing this out to you to let you know that over time, so you can come back in here and take this assessment whenever you would like to. And over time, you'll have populated with completed assessments. Not as many as this. I have all this in here just from system testing and making examples in there. So you probably will never have a list of completed assessments quite as lengthy as mine. You might, however, have saved assessments. What that means is if you're in midstream and you need to leave the site for whatever reason, you can save it and it will save under this heading, and then you can come back and continue at any time. But let me tell you why you're not likely to have this much information populated under saved and completed. You know, we're going to do this assessment today to set a benchmark. This is your current state. And then that completed maturity model will inform you and whomever else you work with, us, or perhaps you work with another technology consultant, and it will guide activities around your technology state. But those things take time. You probably will not complete this assessment again. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, 8 months, 6, 8, 12 months. Maybe it's something that happens once a year or once every 2 years, right? Because it takes time to address areas that you want to improve. So it's not the kind of thing you're going to take every week or even every month. Now, let's say you take the assessment and then you engage in some pretty substantial activities around your technology house over the course of the next 3 months. I'll just make it super fast. Okay, then you may want to come back in and take it again. But generally speaking, this is not the kind of assessment that you take repeatedly every week or every month. It's something you put in place for current state, take some action to improve whatever the technology state is, and then you take it again a year or so later or whatnot. That said, we don't stop you from coming in here to take it. You're welcome to do that. It just may not be very useful to do so until you've actually had a chance to take action. All right, so let's click the button to take the assessment. And what we're going to do, you can certainly work through this more rapidly than I'm going through it if you want to. But when you get to the end, I ask you hold and not leave the site, because we all want to make sure that we're sharing the finalized report. But in any case, we're just going to go through each of the 13 questions. I'm not going to read every single question to you, but I am going to hold for a minute in case you have questions that you want to ask about the questions on the assessment. Let me make one blanket statement about answers. If you are uncertain what an answer is, I urge you, answer conservatively. You're in a much better position to answer conservatively than you are to overestimate where you are, because it's much easier if you underestimate. It's much easier for us to look at it and help you delve into that a little bit and say, oh no, you're actually at this higher answer. And then it bumps up where you land on that security assessment. It's much more difficult if you overestimate where you are for us to ferret that out unless we really dig into something. And if there's a high score, or it's that deep blue that shows, that is strategic, then the likelihood that we delve deeply into that is less. So be conservative if you don't know the answer. So anyway, I'm going to answer these questions as we go along. I'm just going to do another test run as if I'm answering for a nonprofit. But before I do, does anybody have any questions around what we mean by description of your infrastructure? Any questions before I click next? All right, moving on. Questions, comments? And I can always backtrack as we move through this. As you can see, I have a back button. So if I move on and then you decide you have a question, no worries. Hey, I'm going to go out on a limb. Bet you most of you are answering with the first radio button if I'm using the poll as any indicator. I suspect very few of you will answer with the top radio button in here, aligned to a two to three year technology plan, because most of you answered that you don't have a tech plan, right? So it would stand to reason. These are kind of some of the overarching issues we would look at. In this question, when we say operating on unsupported versions, that means, are you using a Windows laptop running, Windows XP and Microsoft Word from 8 years ago? That might not be a supported version. That's what we mean by unsupported. If you're working on Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace, you're operating under current versions because they keep those versions current, right? It's a cloud platform, you're working in a current version. If you're the only person in your organization, this might seem like an odd question, but apply it to just yourself. If this is a one-man show or a one-woman show, then you would consider yourself, turn the lens to yourself and say, yeah, this is where I land. Of course, if there's more than one person, then try to consider it collectively. Just sort of moving through these, allowing you the space to ask questions if you need clarification. Please don't hesitate to speak up. If you do have a question, guarantee you somebody else has the same question. When we talk about reporting here, what we mean is, do you have a system that automates how you aggregate your data? You know, some of the fancier programs are like Tableau or Power BI, you know, that those are pretty high end, but the takeaway is it can look at your data holistically and then generate analytical information. If you're doing everything in a spreadsheet, and then you have to manipulate the data in the spreadsheet in order to generate, say, a spark line or a bar graph or something like that, that's a manual process, essentially. You're having to manually go into the spreadsheet. Maybe you don't even have a spreadsheet. Maybe you're just keeping, and this is not unusual. You hear people say, I'm keeping it in a notebook. That happens, but you want to say so, because if that's the case, then it gives us something to sink our teeth into and make recommendations around.
So by data, do you mean program evaluation data or donor data?
All of the above.
Okay.
Whatever kind of information you keep that drives your organization, that's what we mean. Donor data, volunteer data, program data, financial, whatever it is. If you're keeping information, can you report on it with some automaticity, or is it manual, or is it somewhere in between? And by clean data, we mean, do you regularly dedupe? Do you regularly remove outdated information? You know, once you get a donor in your database, do you leave their name in there ad infinitum, or do you go through and comb through to update and only keep current information? Do you actively archive outdated information? That's what we mean by clean data, deduping, up to date, and so forth. And again, if you're uncertain about any of the answers along these lines, rate yourself on the conservative side. That gives us a place to go. We can dig in a little more deeply and then figure it out. If you work remotely out of your home and you don't have an office space, is the internet provider you use, are you up online 99% of the time? Okay, that's stable, right? Maybe you use, AT&T fiber or, high speed from Spectrum or whatever. If you're working out of your home and that's where you do the bulk of your work, then that's how you would rate whether your internet is stable or not. If you have office space, then you want to think of it in terms of, gosh, you know what? Our internet goes wonky 2 or 3 times a month. That's something we will want to look at and maybe help make some recommendations around. If you don't have a phone system, maybe everybody has a mobile phone and it works and you're able to get your job done and your phones work 99% of the time. It might not be a phone system per se. It might be that you're using mobile devices. Apply that thinking to these questions. If it works and you guys are up and running most of the time, we're in good shape. Okay, once you get to question 13, you'll notice that the button at the bottom changes to where it says complete. Okay, so you're gonna click that button, and when you do, it's gonna put you back on the home page. Okay, and it's gonna show you a completed assessment with today's date. What you want to do is click the print report button. Now, when you do that, you might have a little bit of latency. Sometimes the server slows down a little bit when everybody's hitting it all at one time. But as you can see, mine popped right up. So yours probably will as well. When you see this report, you'll notice looking on my left-hand pane, I have 3 pages. I have my house, my legend. This is what gives me the criteria for each of the color-coded areas that you see on the house report. And then the 3rd page is a list of all the questions and how I answered them. So you want that for historical purposes, okay? That's why we put it in there. But what we want you to do is you can certainly download this report to your computer, right? And once you do that, it will save it in your downloads folder. In this case, you can see it's asking me, where do you want to save it? Okay, I'm going to just save mine to the desktop. And I'm going to, I'm going to put today's date. What's today, the 19th? I'm going to put the day's date because that's our naming convention. That's how we keep up with stuff. So I'm going to save it to the desktop. Now I have it in a place that I can easily attach it to an email and send a copy. Yenting, do you want a copy?
Yes, please.
So what you want to do is you want to email a copy to Yenting and to your volunteer. So create an email and attach this report. And if you need some assistance doing that, speak up and we'll walk you through that step. I'll show you on my computer how I would do that. So create your email and title it, and then make sure you send a copy to Yenting and to your volunteer. What Yenting will do is save it on our system. We keep a copy of all the reports of nonprofits that complete the maturity model because it helps us track our work with you and with the other nonprofits that we work with, right? So she'll want a copy, and then your volunteer, you want them to have a copy so that they understand what your current state is, because the information that we have in here is going to help drive the nature of the conversations that you have with your mentors going forward. It will help them know what your current state is and help them understand how best to advise you. It will also help the two of you have conversations on where you want to prioritize. So for example, if you look here at this report of the sample I just did, I've got 4 red areas. Realistically speaking, if I'm a small organization, am I going to be able to look at getting a technology plan and policies in place at the same time I'm trying to build out a website? Not likely. So I'm going to want to prioritize. Where are my resources that I might have available to help me address certain areas? So you definitely want to have conversations with your mentors. And of course, tech therapy team can help with this as well, where you prioritize where you focus your attention. Very rarely is an organization in a position to address every single area at the exact same time. You need a little bit of a plan of action that's driven by your capacity and your available resources. And that's where some of these background conversations with your mentor will come in to help make those kinds of decisions going forward. And again, I want to reiterate, if you have lots of red areas, there's nothing quote unquote wrong with that. What that tells us is, oh, okay, these are the areas we can look at and begin to address and bring you some assistance, right? There's nothing right or wrong. It's just your current state. So now, did everybody, I'm going to stop my share for a minute because I want to get everybody back up on my screen. Please use a reaction. You know how you have the reaction down at the bottom of your Zoom screen? Give us a thumbs up if you were able to get through the assessment as well as the download and the emailing of it. Give us a thumbs up. Starting to see them populate. Awesome. And if you need any assistance, come off of mute and speak up and say, hey, could you show me how to XYZ? And we'll be happy to help you with that.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Rebecca Rowe. I was able to complete the assessment. However, it says print report. It doesn't give me the option to download. Okay,
so click print and it should, let me share my screen again.
Okay, now I see everything. Yes, I see that.
Okay, and your download button, you can see up here in the upper right-hand corner.
Yes.
It should, okay, perfect.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Other questions? Perfect. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions come up. Okay, very good. It looks like, yeah, I'm just looking through here very quickly. Looks like we're in good shape. Perfect. Okay. In that case, Yenting, let me turn the meeting back over to you, and I'll go on mute. And if you guys have any other questions or whatnot, I'll come off of mute.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jennifer, Stephanie, for giving this great presentation and for walking us through the maturity model. This really set up a great start to our program. So before I let you all go, we do have little bit of time, I wanted to quickly show you the box site. So all of you should have a link. If not, I will be sending a follow-up email with all the links and everything. But just wanted to quickly show you what it will look like. So I've divided each of the workshops into folders. So you'll be able to quickly access them depending on which topic you'd like to access. For Tech Mentors, you have a folder for yourself. All the orientation information that we did prior, they're all in there if you want to review any of that before your meetings. There are a couple of things I wanted to point out from today. So if you go under additional resources, those are where all those templates that Stephanie and Jennifer talked about. So pulling up an example, this is the acceptable use policy. You can see you can just easily put in your name, review it, use what you need. All of those policy templates are in there. We talked a lot about the technology checklist, and I knew this was going to happen, but that's in there as well. The other thing I wanted to point out is the handbook. So it has a lot of great information. A lot of the things that we talked about today is in there. But the one thing I wanted to point out is if you go to the end, there's a list of free resources and tools to check out. Of course, it's not working now, but again, that's in the handbook and at the end. I believe it's the last 3 or 4 pages. There it is. And then there is also a 1-pager for Apollo services if you want to look into that a little bit more. Okay. Other than that, we're going to let you go. See you next Wednesday at 12 o'clock. That will be the mentor meeting. We are going to be using a Zoom link. Just so you're aware what's going to happen, or what's supposed to happen is you're going to get into that link and it's going to automatically send you to your breakout room. There might be 1, 2, 5, 10 minutes where you're by yourself waiting for your partner. So just be aware that, they might be running late. If the 15-minute mark passes, go ahead and drop off and we'll check in about what's going on. I think that's all I wanted to say before I let you all go. Any final questions?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
When it comes to the mentor sessions, does each mentor have one mentee, or is it going to be like a small group?
Oh, great question. It's 1-to-1. So some of you might actually have 2 volunteers, but it's 1 volunteer person or group to 1 nonprofit.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. Well, if there are any other questions or anything else, you guys know how to reach me. Other than that, have a wonderful rest of the week.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a great week.
All right.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.